Hi, Joel Rollins here for Rave TV, day 2 of InfoComm. And I'm here with Tim Brooksbank, who should need no introduction to the viewers of my show because Tim and I talk quite a lot. Tim's my resident authority on scaling. Tim's with Calibre. Tim, thanks for being with us.
Hey Joel, good to see you. Thanks for having me along.
So how's the show for you so far?
It's been good. I got to say, it's not been the busiest of shows, but we have had good quality of attendees, and that matters. It's more important to have quality than quantity.
I'm glad that you say that because that, of course, is the fight among exhibitors. There are the exhibitors that are looking for the number, and there are exhibitors that are looking for, the quality of the individual.
Sure, absolutely. And for me, I don't really care whether I scan 3,000 or 5,000 leads. What I want is the 10 or 15 really good ones.
Okay, have you gotten them so far?
I'd say we have, yes.
Great. What's new with Calibre?
Well, what's new? Apart from me, new style me, we've got some new interesting products. This is our first US outing of our new 4K scaler switchers. We have 4K LED scalers, and we have 4K presentation scaler switchers. And the presentation market is a new departure for us. Previously, we've been known for doing really high-end stuff for great big screens, great big projectors. And now we've got product which is aimed at things like education, house of worship, corporate AV, all this kind of thing. And we've broadened the range, so these products can do 4K in, 4K out, or they can go up to 4K or down from 4K. And they're using our HQ Ultra 4K scaling engine, which is fully in-house developed and gives a truly awesome video quality. If anyone's on the show floor, come to our booth C6844 to see it. But the other thing they do is they give really fast input switching. We're talking typical quarter-second input switching between different sources. And new for this show, we're now shipping our models with built-in analog audio. So they've got audio, microphone mixers, power amplifier, audio line out, and the very new announcement, which was only announced yesterday, is that we now have models with streaming video in. So they will take H.264 video stream over network directly into the presentation scaler switcher as an IP stream. And I think, are we live on Facebook? So we are an IP stream.
Yes, we are. Indeed, at this point, we are.
I got to tell you, this is a first for me because I have never previously been live on Facebook without the influence of alcohol.
Well, that's good. Okay, and I'm glad that you're not because I'm going to ask you some questions. 4K. Last time we talked, 4K scaling had really kind of just hit, and there were a lot of questions about how it was going to be distributed. How's that shaken out?
I don't think that's really been fully answered yet. The 4K display devices are coming into their own. I mean, if you're buying a TV, 4K is the norm now. It's actually quite hard to buy a big, decent TV that isn't 4K. If you're buying projectors, there's still a lot of pretend 4K out there, what I call pretend 4K that uses, by the way, the people in projector land won't like me calling it pretend, but it uses what they call wobulation, which is kind of like a two-directional interlace, right, where really it's a HD imager that's being moved around.
Yep.
That is now shaking out, and there are real 4K images coming through that are actually affordable. In the past, there were real 4K products from the real big guys, like your Barcodes, your Christie's, your digital projection, but you had to sell your house, your car, and your mother-in-law to be able to afford one. Nowadays, there is real 4K images coming through in affordable products. So 4K projection has really come of age. In terms of connectivity, it's still not really quite there. 4K HDMI distribution amplifiers exist, 4K matrices exist, but getting the signal a long way down the cable is still tricky, unless you go to fiber, because at 4K, you're talking about 18 gigabit per second data throughput, or 6 gig per pair on HDMI.
Right.
And whilst it works, it kind of goes about 10, 15, 20 feet, and that's about it.
I was going to say, I'm doing quite a lot of 4K in my other job, my day job, I guess you'd call it. And it's all HDMI at this point. And that we've already discovered problems with certain HDMI cable.
Yeah.
And as a result, it's always kind of been that way. Don't buy cheap wire. But still, some problems even with the best of it. And I had thought that would shake out to DisplayPort. But it doesn't seem to be, at least here.
It really hasn't. And we're finding some people want DisplayPort. Simulation industry, that does want DisplayPort because the very high-end graphics cards tend to be DisplayPort. But we're seeing DisplayPort as being more of an interfacing problem than something people actually want.
Yeah.
For example, they've got something like a Microsoft Surface Pro 3 or 4 with DisplayPort on the output. So they want DisplayPort on the input of something like our scalar switcher, but all they really want us to do is convert it back to HDMI for them, because they really don't want it as DisplayPort.
Right.
And I think that is also down to distance, because DisplayPort over a distance is an even bigger problem than HDMI over a distance.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that, mostly because we see very little product with DisplayPort on it.
Yeah.
I see, as you said, I see a lot of high-end graphics cards with it. I do a lot of work in virtual reality.
Yeah.
And the cards that we use are DisplayPort out, but we're going to distribute it as HDMI.
Absolutely. You see, there you're doing the same thing.
Right.
I mean, you look at something like Apple with Thunderbolt, which is basically built on DisplayPort. The first thing most people do is plug in a dongle that turns it into HDMI.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
So the 4K, in terms of actually cabling it around systems, is not really come of age yet. Everyone's going through all the pain that happened 10 years ago when HD first came out. That whole cycle's repeating itself again. There are lots of different standards, there's lots of different connectivity issues, and really what's available hasn't come of age in that there's a lot of interoperability problems.
Right, and the only time that all comes together and we finalize a standard is when it has become obsolete.
I agree. I mean, I give you an example of a real problem we had on our own booth when we were building our booth for InfoComm. We bought 4K distribution amps, 4K HDMI splitters, which we were adamant worked. They worked when we rigged this all up back at home. We got them here, didn't work. We were having EDID problems. We were having problems driving the cables with these distribution amplifiers. We don't need to say whose they were just distribution amplifiers. In the end, we actually ended up using some spare 4K scalers that we brought along that had multiple outputs, and we're using a stack of our own 4K scalers purely as splitters, because it was the only way we could sensibly split the signal, manage the EDID, and get the cable drive. How crazy is that?
That is great. Well, okay, I'll tell you that there was a point in time in a very large show for Apple where I didn't have we changed the stage layout. I didn't have quite enough cable, and I had to use a 16 by 16 matrix switcher as a turnaround.
Yeah,
right.
This is the kind of thing we're doing.
To join two cables. Okay, let's go input one to output one. Done.
We had a similar problem. Our booth is a relatively small booth. It's a 30 by 20. We couldn't get the HDMI 4K signal from one end of the 30-foot booth to the other end, so we did the same. We had to put a scaler in between to redrive the signal.
Well, just for those of you, right now Rave is putting together a training tour on 4K, and we're going to ask Tim to be an advisor for us.
I'd love that. That would be fantastic.
Now, the other thing besides Calibre, and I've known Calibre for a long time as a manufacturer of very high-end stuff that mostly I saw at first in broadcast, right, and then in high-end shows. But you've also got a partnership with Kramer.
We have got a partnership.
What's new
with
in
Kramer.
that?
What's new in that is really the audio-enabled products. In that Kramer carry rebranded Kramer some of our scalar products, co-branded really rather than rebranded. Nobody hides that it's
Nobody
Calibre.
hides this.
No.
Yeah.
And so we have new models for them which also are audio enabled. So one of the key models they're carrying, they call a VP796, which is a 4K presentation scalar switcher with HD base T, in and out. There's now another model, a new model, a VP796A, which includes analog audio inputs, it includes microphone inputs, microphone mixer, 15 plus 15 watt RMS stereo power amplifier, and balanced line audio out to drive a big amplifier. Now that's big for Kramer because of course one of their key markets is the education market, where people are wanting to do presentation, scaling and switching, but they want an all-in-one product. These guys don't want to have a separate box for audio compared with video. They want something that does the whole thing.
All right, let me ask you advice on something else.
Okay.
Something outside your normal area, but on which you'd be an authority. One of the other things that's going on here is the giant fight between HD base T and AVB.
Oh.
Got an opinion?
You're not going to like the answer. I think they're both going to get killed, and I think they're both going to eventually die, and IP video will take over.
You think so?
I believe so. I think AVB... this is a very difficult one because we make products with HD base T. The market demands HD base T. And for fixed installations, HD base T is good. But the downside of HD base T is it's not very noise immune.
Right, sure. No,
because of
this I'm
technically
well
how it
aware of,
works. I'm not sure if you're aware of how Ethernet signaling works, but Ethernet, okay.
I am.
You are.
I have more network
There
certifications
you
than
go.
I have AV certifications.
So Ethernet signaling, of course, it's kind of a crossover between analog and digital. It's discrete level analog.
Right.
And of course, HD-based T builds on that, but with more levels.
Right.
Now, in the IT world, if you get interference and the levels get mixed up, then the packet simply gets re-requested.
Right.
On HD-based T, there's no re-request mechanism, which
Right.
means the picture craps out. Sorry, I shouldn't use that word. We're live.
But
Anyway,
okay, then what about AVB?
AVB is something which I personally haven't used very much. I understand it is very good when it works, but it's very demanding on the network.
Very, yes.
Very demanding
Very
on the
demanding.
network.
It's more of, to my opinion, more of a true network standard than HD-based T is. But again, there are some issues with making it function on a network that's not its own network. We have several places where we have set up AVB networks, and that works fine.
Yeah. But
right?
it doesn't like to live nicely with everything else.
Right, it does not work and play well with others.
So HD-based T is very good point-to-point, but that's what it is. It's point-to-point, and it has, in the applications it's designed for, it's very good. Where it's done badly is when people have tried to use it in applications it was never intended for. AVB is great if it lives on its own, but then you have coming along, you've got the 7010G 12G SDI formats. So of course there's the, in broadcast you've got the 12G SDI, which is 4K 422, and there's the 10G version of that which will run over Ethernet, and that is really getting some traction in broadcast. But in AV, you've got to look at who's coming up behind the older guys like me and you, Joel. We are purists.
Speak for yourself.
Okay, I'm older. He's young. That's absolutely.
I am.
Absolutely. I'm not sure you're younger than me. I'm not sure. And we'll talk about that offline. I'm not sure who's going to win there.
Okay.
I moisturise. That's why I look so young. But what you've got is everything's getting about convenience. You know, you look at people. We all want the picture to be great, and then people go watch it on their cell phone. And that's all about convenience over quality. And so I think there's going to be this huge drive for convenience, and convenience is going to mean streaming. It's going to mean video over H.264, H.265. And it's all going, I think it's going to be about, in 5 years, 10 years, we're going to be talking about how we get the best quality over streaming, rather than whether we're going HD-based T or AVB.
Absolutely.
And
frankly,
that's
if
the way
I can't tune it
out.
on VLC, I don't want it.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think it's going to shake out to that. It's not there yet,
Right.
but it's going to get there. And that's, if you want my crystal ball, AVB and HD-based T are fantastic stopgap solutions, but they're stopgap solutions until streaming is real.
I think I'd probably back you on that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as a dealer, I have to find the now stopgap.
I
but-
agree. And I have customers, of course, who want product now. So I make
Right.
HD-based T product, and it's great.
Right, sure.
But I don't think it's going to be what they're wanting in 5 years' time.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, he's kind of my guru on scaling. So for those of you who want to see Calibre or who want to ask Tim more questions about this, Tim, the booth number again?
So our booth is C6844, and importantly, you can come see scaling, but also you can come play Pac-Man, you can come play Galaxians. The high score of the show over the 2 games wins a 4K scaler, and we have free chocolate.
Well, we'll stop by. Tim, thanks for being with us.
Great to see you, Joel. Thank you for your
Great to
interview.
see you.
Lovely to see you again.